After months of surveillance, a public arrest and a courtroom packed with cameras, Indonesian authorities declared this case solved. But once you slow it down, really slow it down, a different picture starts to emerge. Because this wasn't just a story about cocaine hidden in chocolate. It was a test of whether a serious international drug investigation was actually allowed to go where the evidence should have taken it. And the uncomfortable question Australians should still be asking is this: why did this investigation stop exactly where it became inconvenient? A case that looked airtight at first glance. On paper, the case against Lamar Aaron Ahchee looks straightforward. 2 international mail packages sent from the United Kingdom, addressed to a rented apartment in North Kuta, Bali. Inside those packages, Indonesian customs officers discovered cocaine, 1.7 kilograms in total, concealed inside Lindt chocolate wrappers. Each wrapper contained roughly 8.3 grams, individually packaged, professionally prepared. This wasn't sloppy. This wasn't experimental. This was organized. Airport Customs Officer Lamar Ahchee was the first to flag the parcels after noticing irregularities during X-ray screening. Tests confirmed the presence of narcotics, and police were immediately notified. From that moment, the operation shifted from customs interception to controlled delivery. Authorities chose not to seize the packages immediately. Instead, they monitored where they were going and who would ultimately claim them. That decision matters because it tells us police believed the person receiving the packages could lead them to something bigger. The arrest on May 22nd. On May 22nd, police moved in. Lamar Ahchee, a 43-year-old Australian, was arrested after authorities linked him to the packages delivered to his Bali residence. A raid of his apartment uncovered 54 individually wrapped Lindt chocolates, each containing cocaine. Ahchee was immediately taken into custody and paraded before media wearing an orange prison uniform, a familiar image in Indonesian drug cases. Within hours, the narrative was set. Foreign trafficker, chocolate disguise, zero tolerance. But narratives don't equal investigations. Who is Lamar Ahchee? Before this case, Lamar Ahchee was not a public figure. He had no prior criminal convictions, no known history of drug trafficking, no previous involvement in international smuggling operations. One detail, however, quietly sat in the background. Ahchee is the son of former Queensland Senior Constable Lamar Ahchee. That fact alone doesn't imply guilt, but it does introduce a layer of contrast that becomes important later. A man raised in the shadow of law enforcement, now facing one of Southeast Asia's harshest criminal systems. It also complicates the idea that he was some reckless, naive courier stumbling blindly into a major trafficking operation. Because people with that background usually understand one thing very clearly: how badly this can go wrong. Ahchee's explanation, and why it couldn't simply be ignored. From the earliest stages of questioning, Ahchee denied knowing the packages contained cocaine. He told investigators that he believed he was receiving packages on behalf of a man he referred to only as boss. According to Ahchee, he had been told the packages contained children's toys. Later, in court submissions, Ahchee expanded on that claim. He admitted to struggling with cocaine addiction in the past. He admitted to being financially strained. He admitted to making poor decisions, but he insisted that fear, not greed, motivated his compliance. He claimed he was coerced, manipulated, and deliberately targeted because of his vulnerability. He said he feared for his safety and for the safety of his partner and family. Now, at this point, many viewers will instinctively dismiss this as a standard defense. That's understandable. But in serious criminal investigations, claims like this are not accepted or rejected based on instinct. They are tested, and this is where the case begins to unravel. The investigation that stopped too early. Once police confirmed the drugs were sent from the UK, a broader investigation should have followed: international cooperation, financial tracking, communications analysis, identification of senders and organisers. Instead, what the public saw was silence. No overseas suspects were named, no UK-based sender was publicly charged, no financial networks were exposed, no co-conspirators were identified. The investigation narrowed rapidly until it rested almost entirely on Ahchee. That raises a fundamental question. If this was an international trafficking operation, why was there only one arrest? The courtroom reality. At Denpasar District Court, Ahchee faced a panel of judges led by presiding judge Djokorda Putra Budi Pastima. The charges were severe. Under Indonesian law, possession or distribution of large quantities of narcotics can carry the death penalty. But as proceedings unfolded, something notable happened. Prosecutors did not pursue capital punishment. They did not request life imprisonment. Instead, they sought a 9-year sentence. That decision alone signals something important. Even the prosecution did not position Ahchee as a top-level trafficker. When sentencing was handed down, the judges went further, imposing 12 years, exceeding the prosecution's recommendation. Judge Pastima explained the reasoning clearly. He cited several aggravating factors. The quantity of cocaine was large enough to harm many people. Cocaine's addictive nature posed serious public health risks. Drug trafficking threatened the stability and reputation of Bali's tourism industry. Ahchee was evasive and attempted to obscure his role. At the same time, the court acknowledged mitigating factors. Ahchee had no prior convictions. He behaved politely throughout proceedings. He expressed remorse. The conviction was specific, receiving more than 5 grams of narcotics. Not organizing, not manufacturing, not exporting, receiving. That distinction matters more than most headlines acknowledged. Why the death penalty disappeared. Early media coverage focused heavily on the possibility of execution. That fear shaped everything, including public perception, family trauma, and diplomatic pressure. But experts inside Indonesia were clear. The death penalty, while legally available, has not been carried out since 2016. A new criminal code introduces a mandatory 10-year waiting period, during which sentences can be reviewed based on rehabilitation. Foreign nationals in particular have increasingly received reduced penalties or repatriation. That context doesn't excuse trafficking, but it does expose the gap between rhetoric and reality. And it raises another uncomfortable question. Was the threat of death ever about justice or about control? The family left navigating silence. Ahchee's family spoke publicly about the emotional toll of the case. They described shock, public humiliation, a sudden sense of abandonment. They were not asking for interference. They were asking for guidance. Instead, they felt reduced to observers, watching a legal process move forward without clarity or support. That sense of isolation matters because it mirrors what happened to the investigation itself. Once Ahchee was sentenced, the case effectively ended. No appeal. And why that matters, Ahchee did not file an appeal. Some interpret this as acceptance of guilt, others see exhaustion, but in practical terms, it closes the door on one thing: further scrutiny. Appeals force records to be re-examined. They reopen procedural questions. They expose investigative gaps. Without one, the case remains frozen at the point most convenient to the system. Kerobokan Prison, where stories disappear. Ahchee will serve his sentence in Kerobokan Prison, a facility notorious for overcrowding and limited oversight. Once inmates enter Kerobokan, media attention fades. Cases lose momentum, public interest moves on, and with that, accountability quietly dissolves. The question police never answered stripped this case back to its core. We know drugs came from the UK. The concealment was professional. The quantity was significant. Ahchee was not charged as an organizer. We do not know who sent the packages, who financed them, who stood to profit most, why no one else was charged. That imbalance is the heart of this case. Because when investigations stop at the most visible suspect, they don't dismantle crime. They manage optics. If this were a corporate scandal involving millions of dollars, no one would accept a single resignation as justice. If this were a logistics failure, the entire chain would be audited. But in this case, one man goes to prison, and the system calls it success. That should make you pause. Not because Lamar Ahchee is innocent, but because no serious system should ever stop asking questions just because it has someone to punish. Now, it's your turn. Do you believe Lamar Ahchee was knowingly involved or deliberately isolated? Do you think this investigation followed the evidence as far as it could have? Or do you think the real organizers are still invisible? Tell me what you think in the comments. Read what others are saying. And if you want more cases where the official story isn't the full story, subscribe. Because behind every closed case, there's usually something left unopened.